Chairman for this evening's forum, Dr. Ronald Blake, Reverend Lembe Civile, Minister of the Meadowbrook United Church, young farmer Daniel Vernon, member here at the Webster Memorial United Church, Mr. Kermit Tucker, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, both in the sanctuary and online, greetings to you all. Now, I know that some people are concerned that it seems as if we have an all-male panel here. What is going on? Permit me to extend on her behalf apologies for Mrs. Olive Downer Walsh, who is unavoidably absent due to illness. We pray that she will recover quickly. But thank you all for joining us and being part of this public advocacy forum of the Webster Memorial United Church. It's our harvest extravaganza. And this forum is a day when we as a church give back to society by providing an opportunity for sourcing information on important issues and receiving answers to questions that impact on how we may better function as citizens of this island community called Jamaica. We are so blessed as a country. And as a minister of the word and sacraments, I take pleasure in grasping the opportunity to say thanks to God for the many blessings that God has bestowed upon us. For truly we are blessed as a people and as a country. Our public advocacy forum this evening gives focus to the issue of food security, a very crucial, very critical matter that has far-reaching implications for the sustainability of our nation and for us as a people. It is important that as people of faith, we consider the implications from our unique vantage point, since matters of ecological health are important to us. We cannot underestimate the significant threat that global warming presents to this matter of food security, both for livestock and for us as human beings. And as people who believe in the benefits of scientific research and exploration, it would not be honest of us not to declare our concern about the potential impact of genetically modified foods on human health. I invite you, therefore, friends, to listen, to make notes, if you will, and to prepare to ask your questions in the question and answer session that will follow. You who are online, put your questions in the chat and ensure that it is directed to either of our panelists here. We have a great lineup of panelists, some of whom are avid farmers. And chaired by Dr. Ronald Blake, we anticipate an informative and engaging exchange that will allow us as Christians of this blessed country to help build a nation that will, under God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. It is indeed my wish that you will find this evening to be a most worthwhile and enjoyable and informative one. A very warm welcome to all of you. Let us go to God in prayer. Let us pray. Living and loving God, you have been so good to Jamaica. Negril Point to Morant Point have been washed by your grace and mercy, and our people have been beneficiaries of your loving kindness. Our lands, their different arenas of culture and commerce and industry and intellectual capacity, all these speak to your unique favor upon us. And as we meet like this to consider this matter that points to self-sustenance, we pray your guidance. We pray the light of your insight. Speak through our presenters, inspire our hearts, and cause us all to rise in action, to plant seeds of hope that will bear fruits of righteousness and a harvest of well-being for others. We place these proceedings and Jamaica land we love in your divine hands. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Good evening again, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you all for being here today as this important gathering is to discuss the issue of food security, a challenge that touches the lives of millions across our communities, our country, and our world. We're gathered here today not just as individuals, but as a church community that is called to care for one another and for the most vulnerable among us. Food is a basic necessity, yet many still face the harsh reality of hunger and malnutrition. As people of faith, we're reminded of our responsibility to feed the hungry and to ensure that no one is left behind in their time of need. Today's forum is an opportunity for us to engage, share ideas, and find practical ways to address this issue both locally and globally. And it is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panelists for today's forum on food security. And each of them will bring a wealth of experience on the matter. Our moderator for this afternoon is Dr. Ronald Peter Blake. With a passion for human growth and development, he believes that people are the most valuable assets and what we do with it directly impacts the functioning of society. He served the sectors of agriculture and education for over 30 years. Most of his professional service has supported vocational training and enterprise development and youth in agriculture. His voluntary service spans many regional and international organizations and committees. Ron Blake is a chief of party for the U.S. Department of Agriculture Jamaica Spices Project and was former executive director of the Jamaica 4-H Clubs, an organization he served for almost 27 years. He also served as adjunct senior lecturer project at Mona School of Business and Management and part-time lecturer at the International University of the Caribbean in projects management. His academic achievements are associate degree in agriculture, a Bachelor of Science in project management, postgraduate diploma in public management, master's degree in business administration, Doctor of Philosophy in education with specialization in leadership. He is the author of the 4-H Discovery and co-author of the Research Handbook, in addition to several national and international presentations. So welcome, Dr. Blake. Our next panelist, which is our avid farmer, is Daniel Claude Vernon. Daniel Vernon is a member of Webster Memorial Church and is 12 years old. 7th grade middle student at the American International School of Kingston, AISK, the equivalent to second form in the Jamaica high school system. Daniel is keenly interested in social studies, government and social justice, philanthropy and agriculture, maintaining for 5 years Farmer Dan's vegetable garden. His background garden business started at age 6 when he decided his Webster harvest box should contain crops he cultivated. While a change of location has caused him to temporarily put his farming on hold, Daniel remains an advocate for the environment and our responsibility as stewards. Daniel is a member of the National Junior Honor Society, AISK chapter, which promotes commitment to the values of scholarship, service, leadership, character, and citizenship. He is also a member of the Global Issues Network, a student-led organization that encourages their empowerment as global citizens. Daniel is an honor roll student and has the distinction of being a recipient of the President's Award for Outstanding Academic Achievement under the patronage of President Joe Biden. He is an avid sport enthusiast and has represented AISK in national competitions for U-turn football and tennis. Daniel is also the 2022 National TVJ Junior Schools Challenge Quiz Champion in Social Studies, representing his former school Creative Kids Learning Academy as a member of the winning team. Church and his spiritual life are important to Daniel. He prepared and delivered the spoken word in November 23 at the launch of the Church School Month and has contributed to the Rooted newsletter, penning an article on his Christian journey as an 11-year-old child when he was baptized. He has for the past 3 years devoted his time and treasure to back-to-school treats hosted by the church at Bushy Park and New Bethlehem Charges, and in 2023 started a campaign that raised funds to allow children from 4 United Church congregations to attend summer camp. He is he's the son of the proud parents, Miss Carly Larman, QC, and Mr. Dwayne Vernon. But if you ask Daniel, he is, in his heart of hearts, a child of God. So welcome, Daniel. And we have with us Reverend Lembe Seville, who is representing UCJCI on this issue. Welcome, Reverend. And then we know last we have Kermit Toko. Kermit Toko was born May 25th, 1945 in St. Anne, Jamaica, and was born again on July 30, 1961. He's married to Yvonne for 57 years and is the parent of 5 adult children, 3 girls and 2 boys, and presently the grandparent of 6. Kermit is an active Christian and an elder at Bethel Gospel Assembly. He has served in many areas, evangelist, pastor, and past chairman of the board at Bethel. Kermit has been a management and lifestyle consultant for many years. His main objective has been to empower people to become all they're capable of becoming by providing the motivation and training to stimulate belief in themselves and their God-given abilities. As a lifestyle consultant, he empowers individuals to take responsibility for their health and their financial future. Kermit is a connoisseur with a profound appreciation for the art of fine dining and has served as a Bali for the Jamaica chapter of the Shender Routers from 1985 to 2008. He's an avid runner who participated in a number of marathons and 10K races, both locally and internationally. Kermit and his wife Yvonne are the founders and directors of Ket's Gourmet Farm, the first and only certified urban organic farm in Jamaica, where they do the sowing and God is doing the growing. They conduct a monthly garden tour and class, how to establish your own organic home garden. They also do a monthly farm-to-table experience along with the garden tour where they serve a 6-course meal paired with wines from their own farm. So we just want to welcome Kermit as well. So ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a very exciting and rewarding evening. And at this time, I'd just like to welcome our moderator.
Thank you, Mrs. Hicklin, for those very, very wonderful introduction. I notice you did not go to school on Reverend Civil, but I think I know why. And the audience here and those streaming, are we on Facebook? On YouTube, will understand why that was deliberately done. A lot is in store, Rev. But I really want to recognize our resident pastor, Pastor Carlisle, and I also want to just recognize and thank our very, very strategic panel of panelists. Mr. Kermit, I notice several decades of organic farming and the future of agriculture and the theology of agriculture, what a mix. Let's see how that goes. I want to spend just a few minutes with you, and I really want to just share with you what I regard as some issues that we should understand very well, and hopefully they will lay the basis as we explore the issue of food security. I deliberately will not define food security. I will leave that to Rev. And I know that Master Vernon will do something on that, so I will not. But I will say we should leave here understanding what is food security, because there are some misunderstanding about what food security is about. And so our panelists will get into that. In the event they have not, or they don't intend to treat with food insecurity, I'll come back at the appropriate time and I'll ensure that we put a handle on that. I don't think we can afford to talk about food security and don't talk about functional foods. And so I just want to share with you that where the great preoccupation is right now is around functional foods. And what is functional food? Functional food is those foods that are not only good for your physical well-being in terms of you having those nutrients that makes you functional, but they are also good for the healing of the body. And when you hear people talk about ginger, turmeric, when you hear people talk about garlic and so, what you're really talking about, you're talking about functional food. And so it's important that Kermit a little later, I'm sure that's something he will tell you, that if you grow them organically, it will even be more functional in their nature. The challenge, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are producing about 9.6 billion metric tons of food to feed the world people. 9.6 billion metric tons. But what is true is that we are producing more and more food. So over the last 2 decades, 20 years, we, according to FAO data, we have actually increased our food production by 56%. And I want you to pay keen attention to these pieces of metrics. 56%. But what is true and is highly represented here when I walked in is that we have had 56% increase in total food production. But guess what? In terms of value-added food, we have had 84% increase over the same period. And here is very much representative of that. Would you agree with me that there are far more processed food here than primary real good food that Kermit will tell you about? And I want you to pay attention to that as we unpacked with you the whole definition around food security. Because it's not just having a whole lot of food available. The panelists will tell you a little more. I also want to share with you that the 14% gap, and that is that 56% for primary food production and that 84% for processed food, because it's called value-added food. I want you to pay attention because we need to understand whether or not it is a safe difference between the quality of processed food compared to that from primary food. Because I will tell you that there is nothing here that excludes sodium chloride. Nothing here. And I'm talking now the processed food, I'm not talking the primary food. Nothing here that excludes sodium chloride. And what do you know about salt? I don't need to tell you. I also want to share with you that 2.5 billion of our people do not have access to the right food in the right quantities. So 2.2 billion of our people are food insecure. And most of these persons are coming from portion of the world similar to this region that we are from. I want you to pay attention to that because there are few people with unreasonable consumption that consume a lot more than they ought to consume. And so we want to understand what is the role of unreasonable consumption in food security. In fact, 25% of the world population consumes 80% of the world toilet paper. Why toilet paper and why am I talking about that? The reality is that the cost of healthy food has increased by 5% across the globe. And the only region that did not experience this 5% increase is North America and some areas in Europe. Everywhere else, healthy, good food is becoming more and more expensive. I want you to pay attention to that. The need for youth farmer is one of the most important strategy that underpins what is necessary to fix the issue with food security. And so the most important thing that could happen today is to have young Vernon here, because he represents the replacement cadre of farmers. The reality is that there's a sharp reduction in the number of farmers worldwide, and there's also a reduction in the number of farms. And let me just unpack that to you. 20 years ago, we had 1.027 billion people in farming. So it was at that time, it was employing about 40% of the labor force. 20 years to today, you know what that is? It is 873 million people. Significant reduction. So you're moving from 40% of global labor force to 27% of global labor force. What does that say? There are less people to farm, and there are less farms. And if you don't have that replacement cadre of farmer, what is going to happen? And the truth is that don't expect, if Kermit was not in farming, don't expect him to start a career again in farming. The potential in there for that to get into the vocation is with Kermit. And I just want to finally share, and I'm not scaring you here, but I will have to close by sharing this with you. It takes 1,000 years to generate 3 inches of topsoil, and that's where you can do any production, Kermit. You agree with me? It takes 1,000 years to do that. And guess what? It takes only few planting seasons. What we call a planting season, Rev Lamy, is about a year, 9 months to a year. It takes few seasons of bad practices to destroy that 1,000 years of production. You know, when Kermit was born, the orange he ate, because he shared his age openly, I don't. He was born 1945. And this is empirical data now. I'm not sharing anything that is off the top of my head. According to the American scientists, it's a good journal to read. They taught the things you want to hear, Kermit. And they have been doing these studies, a longitudinal study that they have done over many decades. The orange you ate, your parents gave to you when you were born, the vitamin C and vitamin A in that orange in the 40s, you have to eat 8 oranges today to get the same amount of vitamin C and the same amount of vitamin A. I want you to understand that when you're understanding food security. So when people are becoming obese, but they're unhealthy, because we are eating so much in order to get that little nutrient, it's because the food today is different from the food yesterday. And there is empirical data that supports that. It's not friction. I also want to leave with you that the same study has shown that there are another 43 fruits and vegetables that suffer the same fate as oranges. In fact, when you're eating broccoli, you're eating nothing. You know, we are having high CO2 emissions resulting from what is happening out there in the environment, the emissions and the greenhouse gas emissions, and so higher levels of CO2. You know what is the purpose of the CO2? It is increasing production, so we're having bigger fruits. Do you know that the carrot today is bigger than the carrot when I was growing up? The mango is bigger. The jackfruit is bigger. But guess what? I'm not scaring you. The studies have shown, and this is earth-moving studies. You know why? Because if we don't correct it, no matter what else we do, we're still going to have the problem. Because what Ladaze, a postdoctoral fellow at Princeton, he spent his life doing seminal work. And what he found is that the larger the size of the fruit is the lower its content in zinc and iron. So, when you go to the market and you see a smaller orange, what is Ladaze saying? He's saying the smaller the fruit, it is more likely to have those critical nutrients, and the larger they are. Because he's saying larger fruits are less likely to have those critical nutrients. And remember, when my speaker comes and they unpack the definition for food security, you'll understand why these metrics means a whole lot. I may have done more than the 5 minutes I planned to, but Reverend Lamy, I now call you to unpack and put perspective to these metrics. Thank you.
My sisters and brothers, good evening. It's good to be back in this space that is more home than anything else, and it's good to see very familiar faces, and good to see my brother and friend Asta. It's been a while. Yeah, good to see you, and thanks to Meadowbrook friends who are here. Thank you for your support. It is always good to have you around. What a topic this evening, and one of the confessions I have to make is that I keep asking myself, how did I find myself talking about this? But this evening, I want to give a theological perspective to issues of food security and how that is embedded in the scriptures, but also to explore some avenues in terms of what is happening in health areas and social areas and the dynamics that have changed over time, because we need to actually understand what those are. I hope that I can have the PowerPoint presentation. But one of the things really I want to say from the onset is that the topic of food security is not just an interesting and appropriate topic to cover, but it is an urgent matter that all of us should take time to engage. And I want to commend Webster for this initiative, because this should be a beginning to many other platforms where we can engage in these very important issues. Why is the subject of food security important? It is important because it touches on the very fabric of life and death. So matters of food speak to life. They also speak to death. And that is how serious they are. And one of the things I also want to bring up is that when you talk about matters of food security, we are talking about the aspect of the impact that food security has to quality and quantity of life. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time to talk about quality of life this evening, but I want us to remember quality and the quantity of life. And both are very important to our well-being. Now, one of the things that I found this definition of food security to be very profound, that food security exists when all people always having physical, economic access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for active and healthy life. So food security looks not only at the availability and accessibility of life, but we are talking about consumption and utilization and stability of food supply. But one of the things that I want to pick from that is the aspect of knowing that when we talk about food security, we are not only talking about availability of food, but we are talking about the quality of food that people have access to. So it's not just about the food you eat. It's about the quality and the
content that is in the food that you eat. And that is where the danger is. We might sometimes think that we are food secure when in fact we are food insecure, because we might have a lot of food that is not of any benefit to our body. So you might be eating food that is not adding value to your body. So the food might be there, but it is not adding any value to your body. The quality of the food you're eating is not good for your well-being. Now, here is the deal. I want us to look at these numbers quickly in terms of, but before we get there, one of the things we want to remind ourselves about is that when we talk about food security and we talk about quality of food, we're also talking about longevity of life. One of the things is that science is telling us today that it is possible that we might be able to live longer today, but we are only going to live longer based on how frequently you take medicines. And some of these medicines, the longer you take them, you might be long, but you're not going to lead an active life. So you're going to spend much of your life in bed or jumping from one doctor's office to another. And these are some of the things that we need to address as we go. But also it is important to remind ourselves this evening that we are what we eat. The food we eat actually defines who we are. Now, one of the things that I want to remind us about, these are things that we know. We know very well that 54% of Jamaicans are overweight. We have to remind ourselves about this. And 1 out of 3 live with hypertension. The other thing we need to remind ourselves about is that diabetes cases have increased by 42% since 2001. And also 80% of our deaths in Jamaica are as a result of non-communicable diseases. So these are serious issues we are talking about. Now, let's go down to that slide which we have there. The survey that was conducted by the Nutrition Research and Food Science in 2014 revealed that 54% of Jamaicans actually had inadequate dietary quality food. So they were eating food, but the quality of food that they were eating did not meet the kind of quality and content that was required. In 2017, there was a study that was done, and it revealed that 58.2% of households in Jamaica indicated that they had sufficient food to eat, and 28.6% indicated that they had sufficient food sometimes. In 2018, the same survey was done, and it revealed that 62.7% had sufficient food to eat, and 28.6% indicated that they had insufficient food. In 2019, 27.5% of households indicated that they were food insecure. Now, during the COVID-19 time, when the Food for the Poor did a survey, they realized that 49.1% of the respondents indicated that they actually needed support of food. Now, what I want to cover in this presentation really is to remind ourselves that science reminds us that quality food is not one that is manufactured in the factories. Quality and good food is food that is grown from the soil. So the more food we grow for ourselves, the better it is. But one of the realities that we need to remind ourselves about this evening that we know very well is that Jamaica imports more food than we produce. So meaning that if we are to talk about quality control in terms of what we consume, we don't have control over that. So these are serious issues that we need to consider. And when we talk about growing our own food has a lot of advantages. What are the advantages of growing your own food? When you grow your own food, you're able to control how you grow the food, what you apply to the food, and also to ensure that there are no shortcuts in doing that. Now, one of the realities is that we have to come to a place where we have to understand that there is nothing as important as growing what we eat and eating what we grow. Because the truth of the matter is that what we see on the labels of the food we eat is not actually the truth. The label might be telling us one thing, but the reality is another thing. This evening, I want to submit 3 things. The first one is that if we are going to sort out the issue of food insecurity, we need to value land. There has to be value for land. The second thing I want to submit this evening is understanding that work is a gift from God. Work is what? A gift from God. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the position of the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands concerning food. And then after that, I'm going to just submit a little bit of recommendations as far as that is concerned. Now, my friends, we know that land ownership is a multifaceted topic. And I don't want to go into the politics of land. But I want to simply talk about the importance of understanding that having land and preserving it and using it appropriately is actually a direct link to food security. Now, one of the things we need to know is that currently, as we all know, we have slightly above 8 billion people living globally on the planet. And one of the things is that it took us until the 1800s to reach 1 billion people. All right? So it took us 5,776 years to reach 1 billion people on planet Earth. Now, what has happened is that between the 800s and today, we've added to the population 7 billion people, meaning that in 224 years, we've actually added to the population 7 billion people. Now, if you were to give an average of this, you realize that if this is the case, it means that we have been adding 32 million people per annum, but actually the data is showing something different. The data is showing that in 2023, we actually added 134 million people to our population. All right? Now, when you talk about the issue of land, you need to understand that the same land God created 6,000 years ago is still the same size. So the number of the people who live on the same land has increased, but the land has not. So this comes with its own issues. But one of the things we need to understand is that land is of great significance in the biblical aspect, and it has some very important theological pointers. Because what land does is that land gives us the opportunity to live God's purpose through our utilization of land, but also experiencing land through the interface with nature and experiencing God as the creator and still the ultimate owner of land. So the utilization of land should not be defined by anything else other than the standards that God has given us. And then you understand that the use of chemicals is not the standard of God. And now that we've gone, because we are living in a fast world, you know. So we are trying to modify everything. We want to grow a crop that is supposed to grow in 3 months. We want to grow it in a month or 2. And these are challenges. And those of you who travel, you agree with me that if you go in certain countries that I don't want to mention here, when you taste the food there, you wonder whether it is chicken you're eating. You wonder whether it is pork. I went to one country and they told me this is pork, and I had to ask them again, what kind of pork is this? The taste is totally different. The chicken is totally different. And this is the reality. Those of us who've grown tasting good food, you know, when they give you food that does not taste anywhere close to real food, boy, it's a struggle. It's a big struggle. Now, the creation story tells us that everything God created was not put in heaven, but it was put here on earth as a gift to humanity. And the first thing that God gave Adam and Eve was not a Lamborghini, was not a house. He gave them a garden. And the garden that he gave them was not to dance in that garden, was not to play music in that garden, was not to hold parties in that garden. It was to utilize it. It was to work it so that productivity in that land can actually be utilized. Now, one of the things about land is that land was the first gift that God gave to Adam and Eve, you know. God gave land to the children of Israel as he promised them. And we see, my friends, that every Israelite was commanded to own a piece of land. Abraham owned land which he used for his livestock farming business. Job owned land which he invested thousands of animals. Ananias and Sapphira owned land. There can never be a productive conversation on land security without having a conversation around land ownership. In addition, my brothers and sisters, to buying apartments and townhouses, let us consider buying land that we can use for farming. But one of the things really is that many of us who are in the city, in Kingston and St. Andrew today, the truth of the matter is that most of us are from country, you know. That is just a reality. The thing is that what are we doing with our family land in the countryside? How often do you visit country? Do you even know what is happening to that land you think belongs to your family? What are you doing on that land? Because the truth of the matter is that sitting in air-conditioned offices and writing papers and attending conferences and having debates on this matter is not going to change anything. What is going to change the narrative is when we leave the air-conditioned offices and go and work the land. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about work as a gift, because I think that is the biggest challenge that we have when it comes to the issue of land. If you have land and you can't work it, it's as good as not having it. Because land is not just meant for you walking on it and seeing how greenly it is and all that thing. It is something that you have to work on and make sure that you improve what is there. Now, work is a gift from God. And one of the things that inspires us about work is that God himself is a worker. Can you imagine that God created all that he created in 6 days? And on the 7th day, he had done whatever he needed to do and he rested. So if you want to be inspired by one worker, that worker is God Almighty. Now, one of the things I want to say also is that we need to understand that there is so much spoken about work in the scriptures. And I want us to run through the scriptures quickly to remind ourselves about some of these things, because sometimes we easily forget about these things. Listen to what Proverbs chapter 12 verse 24 says. Diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in forced labor. Proverbs 14:23 says, all hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. Psalm 90:17 says, may the favor of the Lord our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands, O Lord. Proverbs 12 verse 11 says, those who work their land will have abundant food, and those who chase fantasies will have no sense. Proverbs 6:10 says, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and sanctity like an armed man. 2 Thessalonians 3 verse 10 says, for even when we were with you, we gave you this rule, the one who is unwilling to work should not eat. The truth of the matter, my friends, is that the work ethic in this country is a source of concern. We are living at a time where we think, and I can say it myself as a pastor, that one of the most disappointing and frustrating narratives is the miracle money, where people think that they can type amen in the chat and then they'll have food. They can type amen in the chat and then they'll have money. So we are living in a world where sometimes you wonder where people get if you don't work it, you can't have it. It's just about work, and work is a command from God that when we work, then we can have it. Statistics are showing us that the agricultural sector and the construction sector are deeply affected by human resource. Our construction cannot get people to work. The parish where I come from, many of you know the parish where I come from, where we grow a lot of yellow yam. It is difficult now. Each time I visit them, they tell me it is difficult to find someone to help you out in the farm. Where are the young men? The young men are on the phones trying to make quick money. So we need to remind ourselves that we need to talk time and again about the work ethic in this country if we are going to actually challenge the aspect of food insecurity. The United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, when we rose from our 42nd synod, it was very clear when we looked at the empirical data and the science evidence in terms of the dangers that lie ahead of us. They decided to constitute a task force that was going to lead not only congregations but communities in a conversation of practical engagement that are going to help in sorting out the aspect of food insecurity. And one of the things that is supposed to come out of that, and I think Webster has done a good job, is to have forums of engagement like these ones, where we can sit and talk about these matters. But above all, is to challenge ourselves that when we talk about food insecurity and food security, we should not leave that to someone else to do it. Each one of us, in a small way, we have to be doing something. Backyard gardening is something that all of us need to pursue. Grow your own tomatoes, a little scallion, a little onions, whatever you can grow at the back of instead of putting concrete all over your house, why don't you plant something there? Instead of planting the lawn around your house, why don't you grow something that you can eat there? Because this is the only way we are going to sort out some of these challenges that we have. We are looking forward to a report that is going to come out of this in terms of how far we've gone. But one of the things really is that we have to keep reminding ourselves to ensure that we do what needs to be done. The other thing I want to point out this evening is that we have to change the narrative around farming. Because sometimes we think that farming is for people without degrees. So people with degrees have to sit in air-conditioned offices, because farming is not easy, Farming is not easy. If there is a vocation that calls for patience and faith, that is farming. It takes 9 to 12 months to produce the yam that you eat. 9 to 12 months. It takes faith and patience. And all of us need to know that we have to find a way of celebrating and recognizing those who are involved in farming. And not think that those who are involved in farming have not achieved much. The only people who have achieved much are those who sit in conference rooms and board rooms. But we can't sit in those conference rooms and board rooms if there's no food to eat. I want to suggest 3 things as recommendations going forward. The first thing is that the challenge of food security is a reality and a threat to quality and quantity of life. Therefore, this cannot be left to a few Jamaicans to meet the demand for not just the quantity of food that we need, but the quality of food and the nutritional values that are embedded in it. With this background, there is no choice but for each one of us who are here and those who might not be here to begin doing something. We don't just want to be saying something, but let us begin to do something. But also, the church must be an advocating voice in changing the narrative that farming is for those who fail to make it in school. But also, the conditions of our farmers. The cry of our farmers is something that we need to ensure that we embrace as we go forward. Because once we do that, it is going to become easier for them to focus and concentrate in what they do. But part of it is this challenge. If we are going to encourage people to go into farming, is farming an attractive profession? I want to call it a profession this evening, Is farming attractive? And how can we make farming attractive so that some people can also say, I'm going to leave the boardroom, I'm going to leave the air condition and go down in country and farm. That's the place we need to go, But as long as we don't make it as attractive as it is, do you know that an average farmer, most of the seasons, they don't even break even? What they invest in terms of financial resource and labor and time, and if you look at what they get at the end of the day, they don't even break even. So how do you expect them to continue to grow food? And if they were to stop growing food, then you and me are going to run away from Kingston, And the option maybe is going to be to go for foods that are not very healthy. So I want to say that let us do that. The other thing is that the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands is blessed with a lot of land. What are we doing with our land? What I'm proposing this evening is a stronger partnership between rural congregations and the urban congregations. One of the things we can do is that why don't we partner with churches that have land so that we can provide resources for them to produce, and when they produce, we can also tell them to say, produce what you can produce, and we are going to provide the market for you. Because that way, we are going to empower them and we are going to utilize the land that is there. Because if you go in the countryside and you talk about this land that we talk about in all our meetings, it's pure bush that is there. Yeah, you can't even walk in that. So we need to come to a place of saying, God has blessed us already as the United Church, and maybe the challenges that we talk about our finances, why don't we go into agriculture as a business big time and ensure that we become the food basket of Jamaica? I submit, my friends.
No, I told you there was no need to introduce Rev. Not only did he take more than his 15 minutes following on my example, but I sat there and I said, as a moderator, it's my job to pull his coattail, but when the stuff is good, you get away. And, I love it. I hope you paid attention to the fact that 56% of Jamaicans are food insecure. That is even greater. And if you notice, a lot of the data I shared with you are more global because I knew what was coming. And so worldwide it's 42%, locally it's 56%. It's concerning. But let me tell you, it's not all doom and gloom, because guess what? You know that Jamaica has one of the youngest farmer population in the world, contrary to what you think. It's visceral when you hear people say the average age of the Jamaica farmer is 60. It's not true. It's actually 37.8 years. And that's very attractive because there are a lot of young people like Master Vernon who has an interest in it. And there are great organizations like the Jamaica Forge Clubs over decades have really been creating an avenue and opportunity for young people to participate. When you look at a lot of the studies that has done, what is the strategy to shore up agriculture? Youth involvement in agriculture is one of the big strategy to get agriculture right. And so I want you to put your hands together for the future of Jamaica's agriculture. Master Vernon.
Moderator, fellow panel members, ministers of the Webster Memorial United Church, and our online audience, good evening. This is a very important forum. Right here in Jamaica, the threat to food security is real. Hurricane Beryl made sure to remind us of that. I am passionate about this topic. I have been interested in agriculture from age 6. And at age 12, I can say that I had devoted just under one half of my life to my backyard farm. Now, for the serious part, I am a real foodie. Personally, I need to be secure, and so do you. What is food security? In my own definition, after reading from different sources, food security is one's ability to access food which is sufficient in both quantity and quality. After digging deeper into this simple meaning, I've made an abbreviation that can expand this topic. I call this abbreviation QQA. QQA means quantity, quality, and accessibility. Now, we will find out why this abbreviation is so important. First, in a discussion like this, quantity and availability are synonymous. According to the World Bank, physical availability of food deals with the supply side of food security and is determined by factors including the level of food supply. For me, that means a sustainable amount of food production and supply that can be utilized for a specific period and for a specific number of people. Second, quality seems quite obvious to me. It means food that is nutritionally sufficient and is quality checked for safety from parasites, harmful bacteria, other hazardous factors, and of course, expiration. Third, accessibility. Simply put, can a person acquire the right food in the right amounts or not? How hard or easy it is to do this. You may be wondering, what are signs that you can't get quantity, quality, and accessibility? Put another way, what are the signs of food insecurity? First, high food prices. If food is too costly, how can the not so fortunate or even the persons in a better position than them afford the right food? Second, food or bills. Many people encounter this dilemma every single day. Third, what if you are often or always uncertain about the QQA of our next meal? This can cause psychological damage. Fourth, illnesses caused by the lack of QQA start to become the norm. These include kwashiorkor, marasmus, tapeworms, anisakis, and overall severe malnutrition. Fifth, reliance on rations and relief supplies from charitable organizations. The list goes on, but I have just highlighted a few. And now, at the end of this list, the consequences arise and are dire. Famine, undernourishment, job losses, civil unrest, and even death. In the latest check in 2023, according to the World Health Organization, 2.3 billion people globally faced moderate or severe food insecurity. In the 2023 Global Hunger Index, Jamaica ranks 38th out of the 125 countries studied. With a score of 7.5, Jamaica has a level of food hunger that is low. That's a good thing. We are not in as dire situation as other countries, but come on, we can do better. We need to find a way to improve and include young people in the conversations, the actions, and the solutions. So, Here are some important questions. What can young people do? What have young people been doing? How can the government support young people with agriculture as a vision? How can we develop a culture that makes the environment on which agriculture greatly relies everyone's responsibility? I could never have the answers to all of these questions, but I want us all to wrap our minds around them. I have some thoughts on how we can make good answers to them. Encourage youth to take responsibility for their environment. Expose youth to the global setting that will allow them to be sensitized to food security challenges. I have been part of charity events as a young person. I see the adults make the young people somehow lead, of course, under some supervision. So maybe schools and churches can develop clubs that give young people a fighting chance to lead against this global and perilous issue of food security. These could include clubs that enable young people to connect with youth in other countries and enable them to maximize the global network that is available to the youth in the fight against food security. I was amazed when I researched and found many websites on food security that are youth-centered and cross-border. Let the young people have a voice. Let the young people have a say. The world has changed and changes every day. This forum is on YouTube. Not long ago, we would all be sitting physically in church for a forum like this. There are many ways of reaching young people, and like Christ, we have to go to who we want to reach. Young people who have constructive thoughts about food security can create their own podcasts or be guests on podcasts or shows that focus on food security and allow them to share their thoughts to people of all ages, across genders, and in different places. Maybe one of them may have a breakthrough. Who knows? It's possible. Can the government build on what the youth have done so far to combat food insecurity? An example of this is the 4-H Club. It was established in 1940 as a merger between the youth arm of the Jamaica Agricultural Society and Jamaica Welfare Limited, now known as the Social Development Commission. In 2021, the 4-H Club had a whopping 105,000 members. That's a lot. And in my research, I read about our moderator's pivotal role in the progress of that club. Important training was provided to young people in high schools in areas including agriculture and home economics. I believe this would have helped their own personal growth and mindset, which are good weapons to fight against food insecurity. I would encourage the government to continue to support this club in all schools. But this takes me to a final point. Not all youth can do a backyard farm. All studies I read show that access to land is a huge hurdle for many farmers, let alone youth seeking to enter agriculture. In my own residence meant my backyard farming had to be put on hold. I hope I can persuade my grandpa in Westmoreland to partner with me for the land I will need, but not everyone has that opportunity. It does not mean that they do not have a role to play in this fight against this challenge. It really is not all about a farm. Here are some ways that youth can help. Educate yourselves about the science of food security so that you can spot it in yourself and in others. Volunteer at local organizations to help to provide food for the hungry in your community. Encourage your family to create a support system of family and friends to check in on each other. Knowledge is always a first step. If you know that someone is in need or is going through a hard time, the support system can pull to help. That person does not have to be alone or face the shame and trauma of being unable to find food to eat. Remember, food insecurity has always been around. You will never get fully rid of it, but we can make it less of a problem. If a boy with 5 loaves and 2 fishes was strong enough to give what he had in faith for the greater good, then, as young people, we can give our thoughts, talents, and voices to make our society and the world a better place.
We can use this one.
You know, I love to say the youth is really not the future. The youth is the now. You agree with me? The youth is the now. You know, when I sat there and I listened to him and I became, to be honest, I became overwhelmed. And Joan, you know, this would matter to me so much. And, you know, it reminds me, Master Vernon, 25 years ago, I had a run-in with a youngster. And I said to him, what is it that you want to do? And he told me 25 years ago that he really wants to become a scientist in agriculture because he would want to be able to create a chicken that is seasoned. And when you get the chicken, you don't have to season it. You just get the chicken and whatever. 25 years ago, Rev. Let me tell you this, and I want you to pay attention. I have a keen interest in educating. And I have a bias towards telling people what is accurate and not just what comes from the internet. Because as you know, 80% of what you Google comes up is not stuff that ought to be used. But, you know, there is a way to get the right information. But let me tell you this. Do you know that right now, and this is what the Food and Drug Administration of the United States has just approved, that chicken is no longer grown in cubs. Did you know that? Did you know that? It's a machine with a cell that runs through a chain and replicates, and it runs down the bottom there, and what runs off the line is chicken. You know that, Rev? And my organization for which I work for had just approved it. I've just approved it. And of course, you know, I have to support it. The truth is that as we, you know, Master Vernon, you are the now. And I hope that all of us are doing our QQA. What's the QQA? And what is that grounded in? Food security. Because food security is about quantity and accessibility. Thanks for the grounding, Master Vernon. Excellent. Now, let me pick a bone with our next speaker. You know, when our pastor prayed, I don't remember if this was in the prayer or in his preamble, but he talked about genetic modified food. And it's kind of hard to come to his church and disagree with him, because I may not have the opportunity to come back. I listened to my friend Lamy too, and but let me tell you, if we don't do those kind of work, the planet will suffer. And don't go around it. So, what Kermit is doing, a lot of people don't know. When I was growing up, my father could reap corn and plant it back, and he gets a good crop from it. You can't do that anymore. You could buy Irish potato and you plant it and you reap it and you leave back some seed and you plant it again. You can't do that anymore. Why is that so? It's a part of genetic modification. But the reality, guys, I want us to find a way to research and understand it a little better. Because the truth is that it's not that you're eating poison. is because the talent that God has given to man, the wisdom, is really helping the world to be able to create higher levels of productivity out of a lot of the foods we eat. But the truth, it comes with some consequences. And that is why the food that Kermit produces is so expensive. But if we were to consume those food, I will hazard a guess that 95% of our population would be food insecure. I take this opportunity to welcome my friend, Sir Kermit.
Thank you so much. The mic is not on. Thank you so much. It really is a privilege to be here. I have a way of asking people to do things for me. You see all of you guys over here? You look good, but you look a lot better right before me. So could you come right across for me? Come right across. You could look a lot better before me. You would motivate me. You would help me to stay within time and to educate. No, I'm seriously. Just get up and come across. Come across. Come across. Thank you. Oh, boy, you have a pliable congregation. Isn't that fantastic? No, you missed me over here. Over here. Just come over here. You're only there for 15 minutes, man. Don't worry about it. Come on over. Come on over. Come on over. Pastor, it's a pleasure being here. And my best memory of Webster was when Keswick used to have a Bible reading. That was before your time. And so we would have the night Keswick at Harden's Hall. And in the morning, we'd come here at 10 o'clock for Bible study. And my favorite seat was that third bench right there. I'm not too sure we had this then. I don't think we had that. But let me tell you, those Bible studies were so rich. You just sat there with these teachers of the word and you just soak it in, soak it in, soak it in. Okay, my job is relatively simple. I want to talk to you a little bit about sorry about that, I need to stay on time, about the benefit of organic. Why are we talking about organic? And what exactly is it? How do we do that? Put this on screen for me, son. You can do those things better than me. I have a grandson that lives at home with me, and every time, he must have tired of seeing me at his room. I was there last night at 9 o'clock, because they just seem to know, oh, good. They just seem to know how to get this thing done and get it done quickly. Okay. Why organic farming? What is organic farming? That's what we're talking about. Now, you have been told a little bit about me, and let me just go over some of it so that you might understand where we're at. I run an organic farm, urban farm, and I want to emphasize urban. It is the only certified urban farm in Jamaica. My wife and I get involved in this, and we were involved in it long ago before it became a business. In fact, we never intended to do a business. All we intended to do was to feed our 4 kids and ourselves in a healthy way. And that's what we were doing. Until we start growing these things in containers, and I would take them and give them to my friends to care for it and to have healthy food. But when I went back, they just never took care of it. And then one of them said to me, why don't you package this thing and bring it to church? So I packaged 10 packages, and they bought it. The next week I packaged 20, they bought it. The next week it was 40. The next week it was 80. Today we are doing like 300 packages, and they are being sold in the supermarkets under the brand Ket's Gourmet Selection. Very simple story. But the benefits of organic, and let me say, David, you said the name was? Daniel. Oh, Daniel. Yes, I said you're going to be a Daniel. Fantastic job. And what I'm talking about tonight is going to show you how it places this young man in the right place, where Daniel will be able to do the things that he ought to do. So what are the benefits of organic farming? Organic farming is an agricultural production method that combines the best environmental practices with the more natural processes. Hence, organic means connecting the basic needs of the population in an innovative and modern way by reconnecting the dots and human. Make any sense? It will make sense as we go along. Why organic? Organic farming rescues the risk of environmental pollution. The first thing is that it helps us, my friends, by eliminating the use of manufactured chemicals and pesticides. I am here to tell you that most of the things you need to grow on a healthy crop, you have it at home. Most of us dump our best vegetable, our best organic stuff every single week to the garbage. We burn them, we dump them, but we don't make fertilizers with them. So what we're talking about is to get to the place where you no longer depend on manufactured chemicals and pesticides. The way we farm and the way we eat is going to make a world of difference to our life, to our country, to our family. We have heard a lot about eating from both speakers who did very well. We are saying, my friends, that we are getting to the place, that we are at the place where your belly full, but you're hungry. Are you with me? You're eating a lot, but you're not taking anything from it. So how will all of this play out for us? First benefit, that it's better for the planet. It's better for the planet. Organic is designed to respect nature and enhance the health of the soil, our water supply, our quality of life, which means that there is no artificial fertilizers. You see, my friends, it is going to help us to preserve the planet. So when David goes up, he will have land that is not depleted by synthetic fertilizers, insecticides, and things which makes the land bare. Understand? If his grandfather decided to leave land for him to farm, but right now his grandfather is down there throwing all kind of pesticides and insecticides and what have you in it, when he gets there, he will have nothing. He will not be able to produce a good tomato, although tomatoes are so easy to grow. So understand, when we use these things in our soil, we are destroying not only the land you live on now, but you are destroying the future of the next generation. And I want you to get this more than anything else. You can't be short-sighted in what you want. You want to produce a nice looking fruit, but you are putting things in it that are making it no good. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to ask my presenter to bring up the first film for me, the first clip that I want you to have a look at. And while they get to it, I will continue talking because we have no time to waste. I want you to look what happened when one man owns more land in the United States than the government themselves, and what they are doing. Have a look at this. Have a look at that.
a team of scientists from the University of California, Riverside, are researching ways to turn your groceries into mRNA vaccines. These researchers seek to spread coronavirus spike proteins throughout the food chain to overcome the world population's vaccine reluctance. This experiment could lead to a new vaccine paradigm in which Big Pharma has complete control over the food supply. Could this be why Bill Gates, a major investor in both genetically modified crops and in vaccines, is buying up farmland across the United States? During the COVID-19 pandemic and under the media's radar, Bill Gates became the owner of the majority of farmland in the United States. Will the food supply be used to test vaccines? Using a grant from the National Science Foundation, experiments on lettuce and spinach plants have already begun, with the intention to develop a new species of greens that can vaccinate people more often, and in a less invasive manner. The researchers at University of California are devising a method to determine the correct spike protein dose per plant, while demonstrating that the plant can copy enough mRNA to outperform our present vaccine supply. The project involves splicing mRNA gene modifiers into lettuce leaves, which upon consumption deliver those chemicals to human cells much like an injection. Dr. Juan Pablo Giraldo, lead researcher and associate professor in UCR's Department of Botany and Plant Sciences, says, "We are testing this approach with spinach and lettuce and have long-term goals of people growing it in their own gardens. Ideally, a single plant would produce enough mRNA to vaccinate a single person. Farmers could also eventually grow entire fields of it." In a plant's cells, the sun's energy is converted into sugar via chloroplast. Scientists want to interfere with this natural process and instruct the plant cells to also generate spike proteins and other foreign molecules so that they can be introduced as vaccines into humans through the food supply. A new paradigm of food-based vaccines. At University of California, San Diego, Dr. Nicole Steinmetz has already developed nanotechnologies that can deliver genetic material to the chloroplast of plants. Steinmetz tinkers with plant virus nanoparticles and repurposes them to deliver foreign genes into the plant's cells. This is not the only edible vaccine experiment currently underway. Scientists from the University of Ottawa have been working on an edible vaccine for coronaviruses for over a year. The Ottawa Hospital is already testing the first prototype. This edible vaccine expresses viral antigens inside the lettuce and spinach plants. Their goal is to deliver the spike proteins to the human body without altering the protein synthesis of human cells. If this research effort can demonstrate the delivery of spike proteins throughout the food supply, the current vaccine supply could be scrapped in favor of a new paradigm of food-based vaccination. They will get vaccinated without even knowing it. This experiment could forever alter the food supply, turning healthy, healing foods into bio-warfare playgrounds that globalists can use to exploit the human race. COVID vaccines in your food. You won't know you're eating medicine or bioweapons. As required by government, the anti-vaxxers will never know what hit them. See the description of this video. Press the like button and subscribe.
I'm not going to take the other because of time, but I want you to understand. In January of this year, I was at a wedding for my granddaughter in Atlanta, and we went to a wonderful restaurant for dinner, and I was afraid to eat the vegetables. Literally was packed with trepidation because I wasn't sure if I was ingesting some of the very examples that we're seeing. The best vegetable, lettuce, tomato, whatever you will eat is the one you grow yourself. And that's part of the reason why we have decided to, on a monthly basis, put on a class to show people how to establish your own organic home garden. And people are saying, but I can't grow anything because I don't have any land. And that's the very reason why we do the class. Because we show you how you can grow vertically, how you can grow horizontally, how you can grow in different kind of containers. There is no reason not to grow. So understand, my friends, that when we do this, it is better for the planet. Secondly, it is better for our people. Organic farming joins the dots between our health and the health of the planet, our animal, and our wildlife. That's what we're doing. We're allowing the cycle to support itself. We're doing that which is going to bring life and sustain life. We're doing, my friends, we're not just adding years to life. We're adding life to years. We're allowing you to enjoy every day of your life the way God intended. I will never understand, I can never understand, Minister, why the church is coming down with the same sicknesses as the world. Why? Because we are eating the way the world do. We do everything the world do. And then we end up packed up with the same kind of diseases and problems. So we need to change that. The Word of God said, I wish above all things that thou wouldst prosper and be in health as thy soul prospereth. At the school last Saturday, it was a privilege to welcome an Ethiopian family. Wife, husband, and 2 kids came to the class, and you should see how involved they were. Understand, what we want to do is to educate the family and for them to understand what we are doing. We are bringing out about better health for our people. Why? We have fewer pesticides, fewer additives, no GMO ingredient. I remembered my wife went to the Coronation Market, I think you alluded to it, and she bought some corn. And she asked the lady, do you grow these corn? And she said, no, we got this, if we plant it, it not grow. That's exactly what our speaker was talking about. You want to get back to where there are no GM ingredient, no antibiotic. The health of our soil or planet or animal, as it were, my friends, are all one. You cannot separate them. So it's better for our planet. We want to preserve our planet, our universe. It is better for our people. We're going to have a better quality of life. I am 79 years old, and I have no intention of slowing up on my next 79 years. None at all. So, and I have no diabetes, no arthritis, none of those things. I tell you something that happened. When COVID came about a few years ago, one morning I felt a rubbing in my bed. And when I opened my eyes, it was my wife with olive oil anointing me. And when I went downstairs, she did the same thing with my grandson and with the helper and the gardener. She said, you will never get COVID. This is Goshen. Well, I'm here to tell you she was dead right. We have not taken the vaccine, and none of us have suffered the fate of COVID. But guess what? We work at keeping our immune system high. And if you have a strong immune base, you can outlive almost any condition. So, it is protecting our planet, it is protecting our people, it is protecting our products. Yes, Organic farming is a healthier way of life. It's healthier for the farmer. I had a friend that I buried 2 months ago in Maypen because he was up in Dallas spraying his things with this thing that kills everything. It kills from the plant down to the root. Gramazone. It damages liver. When he got into the hospital, by the time they do the operation, he bled to death. So understand, it's healthier for the farmer. It's healthier for the family. You want to keep the family healthy? Then, my friends, it is said, and said tonight as well, he said, if you eat healthy, you will be healthy. If you eat junk, you will be a junkie. Yeah. So understand, it is going to be better for the family. It is going to be better, my friend, for our friends. It is going to be better for the mother. It's going to be better for the children. It's going to be better for the entire family. So what we want to do is to get back to where we are eating naturally, we are eating healthily, we are preserving our planet, and we are doing everything to protect our people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Excellent presentation. You agree? Excellent presentation. And there's no greater place from which to speak than from the lived experience. And he was prepared to make himself vulnerable. He tells you, I'm 79, I am doing it, I'm healthy, I never had COVID. He is not telling you from a text or what somebody else has said. And there's a popular saying, I thought it was in the Bible, but it is expressed in the Bible different. Let your food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. Right, it's really not a biblical text, but remember now, this same saying, as old as it is, may have had its earthing in the Bible. Because then if you go into Pastor Ezekiel, right? It tells you about that thy medicine is in the leaf or something like that, that you can go to the leaf of the plant and get your medicine. There you go. And so, yes, you are right that our organic foods are healthier foods. And there's no better way. And a youngster tell us, Vernon told us, you get involved. Kermit says, there's no excuse about space. I want to share the story that one of the most attractive thing I had to show off and persons visiting my home is that I had pumpkin running on trellis in my backyard. And I'm telling you, I had scores of pumpkin on it. And it was so beautiful because it was just running there and persons were so amazed because we have always accustomed to pumpkin running on the ground. And we don't know it is no different from chocho and all of those other trellis plant or those grapes that we have hanging there. The truth is, it is very, very important that everybody get involved. And I agree with you. Mrs. Lorman and I were speaking earlier on, and I was telling her a story that I was told that the family of the family of the queen and what you call them, the royal family, everything they ate came from their garden. I heard Kermit to say the same thing, that it is healthy and it's good to actually eat the food you grow. Another story to tell you is that, you know, there's a big challenge in getting children to eat fruits and vegetables. And some years ago I was in Spain, and guess what? They realized the importance of vegetable for children. And so what the scientists did is that they made the fruits with nice neon colors. And they also gave taste of apricot, taste of strawberry, because that's what kids like. This is where agriculture is today. And so when I said to Vernon, who wants to be an engineer, I would love to see him the next food engineer, because what food scientists are doing today, and I feel a little uncomfortable when we knock it and we become suspicious of it, because the truth is, we are going to be on that path. Someone said, was it Master Vernon who said that we had church on Facebook and we had church streaming on YouTube? And he said, and that's fine. And the truth is that my own view, and Rev and I were talking earlier on, that the church, if it's going to have its own relevance, may need not to see it as an event, but as a trend that it may needs to follow, Rev, or else our existence may become threatened. It is God who created technology. It's God who gave man wisdom. And we have to be careful that we're not revering some things and then we criticize some things because we don't understand it well enough. Because that's a big problem, in a lot of the discourse. It's a very shallow and narrow understanding of the capabilities that God has given to man. I'm actually awaiting the questions from online, but I know there are questions here. And so at this time, the mic is in the back, and I'm going to ask you to come forward, and our panelists are here. And you could see that they are more than their distinct area. Master Vernon is not just about youth in agriculture. He is a gardener, and he's an advocate, and he has a strategy. Kermit is not just about organic farming, so feel free to talk to him about wellness and how do you eat healthy. And Rev has gone the gamut. I love it, and we have been whispering the theology of agriculture is an unexplored body of knowledge that I am acclaiming to you, sir. The theology of agriculture. So, are we getting the questions? I'm seeing that our online guests are still enjoying, and I'm not seeing any questions. Great. Good evening.
I don't have a question, but I'd just like to say something. And this is to confirm about the, I'm not even sure if it's genetically modified, but just how the requirement for growing food differs around the world. So, before we retired, my husband and I were in the export business. We exported farm produce from Jamaica to various countries around the world, France, Europe, Canada, USA, various places. And the requirement for each country was different. How we grew the sweet potatoes for Canada, which is how we eat them here, was different from how they would be grown and required for the US, because they required a different set of chemicals, and the same for France and other places in Europe. And so one of the things we found was that in using the various different types of chemicals that were stipulated by the various governments, the yield of the crop was also different. And some of the crop had to be perfectly shaped, perfectly round, perfectly oblong, perfectly shaped. And you know, food doesn't grow that way. Food left on its own grows in its own natural formation and habitat. And it got to a point at one stage where my husband started to question, and he said, if I am going to get a sweet potato or a piece of yam that is 20 inches across, 20 inches long, you know, and it has to be a specific size and dimension, and what we had to do in order to get it to be that perfect shape, he said, I don't think I should be eating this, and I'm not sure I should be sending it anywhere. The other thing is that for different countries required, in the growing of vegetables, they also required certain kind of chemicals that would keep the vegetables longer. So if we were growing callaloo, it shouldn't be in a state that it would break down before it gets to where it is going. And so I'm just endorsing what was said about the types of chemicals that are used in order to get food to a particular state, to have them being consumed around the world. Because if they leave here, if a particular food that we have that should break down in 3 days, and it leaves here and it can last for 2 weeks somewhere else, having stayed in a cooler, gone in the hub of an aircraft, transported somewhere else, gone in another cooler, and then gone on the supermarket shelf, and it is still in its fresh-looking state, it really does beg the question, is that something we should be putting in our bodies?
Thank you. Thank you. So, you know, she's making the argument that it is always going to be good to grow your own food. You have a lot of control over it. She's also making the argument that the imported food, because of what is required to extend the shelf life, sometimes the quality, that QQA, is compromised. So one of the Qs in the QQA is compromised. You're so right. I think, I don't know if any of the panelists wants to disagree or want to embellish what was said. I think what the point you made was well made. We have no disagreement. Very helpful experience shared. Anyone else? I know we originally had 45 minutes, but because all my speaker did so well in terms of time, I don't think we still have the same 45 minutes, Joan. No. But we certainly will not just have one question or one input outside of the panelists. So somebody else better be asking a question or be sharing an experience. Come along. You know, when I see people sitting smiling, I know they want to share. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've been noticing the quality of the food that we get in the supermarkets, not fruits particularly. The oranges are not quite ripe, yet they have the yellow twinge, but when you peel, you can barely peel it because the skin is so thin, and when you get inside, it is still green. And I have read somewhere where they use a chemical. Some of the bananas that you buy, the ripe banana, they have a very funny taste. They don't taste like the ripe banana I was used to getting when I was smaller. Younger, should say. I'm sort of concerned. I'm wondering if there's any control mechanism to help us, housewives and mothers, families, to get fit food, if you understand what I mean, especially where the fruits are concerned. To me, they're like if you buy a lime, you can't squeeze it. If you buy a bag of limes, you might be able to squeeze 2 out of the dozen that you get, especially from supermarkets. So I was just wondering if there's any control mechanism to ensure that if something is to go to 6 months, it actually goes to 6 months. Thank you.
Very good question and excellent observation. So, but you know, one of the things I would say to you, it's about supply and demand. Because there are fewer of these foods available and the price is so high, the demand, you will want the lime. Guess what? The guys who are bringing them to you, they can't wait until they are mature. Now, the issue with the banana, let me share with you on that, because you're very observant. So, you know, we like to see this very pretty banana, and we tend to take them over this banana that comes regular from the field. People allow them to mature and they will ripe. And it's sweet and spicy. The banana that is mass produced, and especially those that are geared towards export, they are harvested a little before they are fully mature. So that sugar that is necessary to give you that sharp, nice taste in the banana is not there. And of course, my friend who was in export will tell you, just for the phytosanitary requirements, sometimes there are chemicals that you have to use to pretty much clean the fruit, and it has its own implication on quality and taste. So my biggest answer to that, and I know my panel may have other response, is one of the surface way is that what you can grow for yourself is the only point that you'll have full control to reap it when it's ready. The truth is that you're always going to see that happen. And so the other day, I saw people selling pear, Rev. And I'm telling you that it seems as if an ackee, and you have to be careful because, you know, when they open them too early, then they do have threat. But I'm sure you may want to speak to whole maturity of fruit, Kermit.
Really, you said it. The only real security you have is growing it yourself. And I'd also make the recommendation to stay away from the imported stuff. And when you go to the market, even if they are marga like me, buy it. Because we cannot afford the level of pesticides and insecticides that is pumped in these things abroad. Sorry, but even here, we're doing the same thing. We're doing it with our bananas. We're forcing things to come to the market. So you got to be extremely careful about what you purchase. Thank you.
Before you sit, stay right on your feet, Kermit, because someone online, Joan Davis, she wants to know how is it that persons can access classes in organic gardening. I guess she wants to probably get some contact, location, time.
Yeah. The number is 892-7820. 892-7820. And the next class is the 26th of October, 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Thank you.
I think that Jamaica has not lost the opportunity to have access to good food. That is just my conviction. We are still a blessed country. We have one of the best soils in the world. I come from a country myself where we only get rain for 5 months in a year. You get rain more than we do in my country, so you can grow stuff in Jamaica almost the entire year. And this is why I'm still standing on the point of partnership between urban areas and the countryside. Let's keep the bond going. Let's keep the bond going. Don't forget about yard. Go to yard, man. And keep that connection, because what is going to happen really, and I'm a beneficiary of that. One of the biggest blessings that I've enjoyed since I came to Jamaica is going to Low River. And I've kept the link going. And Low River people always tell me that one of the things they're not going to allow to happen to me is for me to starve in the town. So they say, call us anytime and we're going to bring you the food you need. That's why I'm saying, if I can come from Zambia and create such a strong bond, all of us can do it. So instead of depending on supermarkets, let's go back to the farming areas, to our homes, and empower our people, grow stuff from there, so that they can send you the tomatoes you're talking about, the lemon you are talking about, the oranges you're talking about. We can still produce that. There is a possibility. Our population is not large, you know. I know that that we might not be able to meet the demand in terms of market as things stand, but I think one of the things is that we still have an opportunity to grow our own food that we can watch as it grows, and then it shouldn't take too long for food to be transported from Manchester, from St. Anne and all these places. It's just a few hours and you have it.
Excellent. Excellent, thanks. So we do have a few questions. Go ahead.
One contribution. The matter to do with the soil, protecting it, it takes 3 years. If you use a chemical in your soil, it takes 3 years for that to be washed out of the soil. So don't take it lightly. When we had to be certified as organic by the Bureau standard, it took about 2 years for us to pass the tests. And every year we are audited. You have to keep a record of everything you use. Okay? So understand it is important to know where your things are coming from in order to guarantee your health.
Very, very good takeaway. Do you know where your food comes from? Go ahead, miss. Just introduce, say your name and raise your question.
All right. Good evening. I'm Nellie Walker. A lot of persons feel that, having a plant-based diet is the best kind of diet. But I've noticed that a lot of people, although they say that they enjoy a plant-based diet, they like to eat soy products like veggie chunks and things like that. So I'm wondering, how safe are these? Are these genetically modified products, or are they good for you? Should you be eating these instead of just continuing with the natural vegetables?
Yeah. So let me share quickly on that. The truth is that I spend a lot of time trying to research this GMO, because I spend a lot of time talking about food security. It's because I realize how important it is for the world and the world's people. I have seen nothing in GMO work that is a threat to your health. Nothing. Nothing. In fact, what persons have done is do a lot of selfish act. So the companies who have spent a lot of money and time to research and develop genes that is able to become far more productive are protecting their investment. So what they do, they have also turned down the ability for the seed to regenerate. So when you want it, you have to come back to them so they can recover their investments. But the truth is, there is no poison that I'm aware of that is being incorporated. What is true, however, and I don't know it all, is that there are people who can certainly do bad things because of the capabilities they have. So if you look at the video earlier on, and it's an AI video. And again, we have to be cautious about what we understand, what we hear, what we listen to, because that's not a peer review piece of information. And it's nothing that is scientific, but it is pulling from what scientists are doing, but then it's an AI video. Am I clear? But what I would say to you, if there is not GMO, I can tell you that half of the world's population will be without food, because 80% of our food comes from the grain families. And there's a whole lot of GMO that has to take place there in terms of its productivity and so. So when you think about Ukraine, which is one of the largest producers of food, and the fact that all of it has been decimated, if you really don't have the kind of high-yielding varieties, and Rev made the point that there is less and less land that will be available for farming. Because as you have more people and you need to build more houses, and there are more things competing for land space. And guess what in Jamaica? We use the best agricultural lands to build houses. So our class A lands or grade 1 lands that we really need to have good production, we put them in houses. And then there's nobody to defend it, because usually, you could be stepping on toes. But the reality is that as you have less land, as you have less people farming and less farms, you're going to have the GMOs. And the truth is, I will tell you that Kermit is right. The organic food are the best food to eat, safest and most healthy food. But the truth is that it doesn't mean that you can only do organic food for the world's people. You will never be able to produce sufficient amount of organic food in an affordable way with the accessibility for the world's people. That won't solve it. And all of the models that I've seen, Kermit says that when you do a little thing, go do it organically, but don't think that you can do it to feed the world's people. There was another question. I hope
Before we take that question, I think there's one matter that we also need to talk about tonight. Much as we are talking, because quality of the food we eat is the issue that we are talking about today. One of the challenges, though, is that you may have the best food, but how you prepare it also matters. I think we need to talk about that as well. We have to keep our kitchens busy. There is nothing as best as food that you prepare yourself. So it's not just about producing, it's also about preparing the food. So that component has to be part of the conversation, I know we are busy people, and sometimes it's not as easy as it might be, but try as much as you can to eat food that you prepare yourself, or food that you see being prepared. Because sometimes the compromise is in the process, Sometimes you may have food that doesn't have toxins, but in the way it is prepared and the environment it is prepared from, all those things. So let's buy pots and plates and use them in our kitchens.
Go ahead, Miss. Thank you, Rev.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I think the moderator really touched on the questions that I was going to ask, which is that as much as we may want to eat organic foods because we believe that it is the best food, for me, the cost of trying to eat as healthily as possible, it's prohibitive. I go to the Ujima on Saturday mornings, and if I take $5,000 with me, I better make sure that I have $5,000 more, because by the time I'm finished for one bag of items, which is, some string beans, some cilantro, some of those things, I have spent $10,000. And if I buy that, I can't go to the supermarket to go and buy some of the other things that I need. So, you kind of have to balance it. So if I go to Ujima this week, I'm not going next week. right? So there is that. So there's the cost of eating better. And the point that you made about whether or not enough is produced, well, there seems to be a kind of tug of war between, foods that can do for everybody as opposed, what can you afford? So it might be, it's rice, it is yams, some of the things that you think might not be so good for you in the age of diabetes and high cholesterol and whatever. But if you have a family to feed, a family of 5 or 6, or even if it's just 2 children and two adults, it costs, you're running $40,000 every 2 or 3 weeks when you go to the supermarket just to feed those 4 mouths. So you end up buying what you can afford. So there is a real dilemma, there's a real dichotomy between what is good and what is affordable and making choices. And while I believe in, the quality, the quantity, and the accessibility, those 3 things are really difficult to balance. Now, years ago, I remember when the government was encouraging eat what you grow, and somehow we seem to have fallen away from that. I'm not sure what it is going to take for us to get back to that, because agriculture is not sexy as a lifestyle. Well, organic agriculture is, but the other one, the farming, etc. And the other problem that we have is predial larceny and what the government does. Now, I have land, family land, not my family land in Manchester. And my brother and I, we growing some stuff. And he came out of it simply because he says, Geraldine, it makes no sense. Whatever I put in, I cannot reap. I cannot reap. I have another brother just below Mandeville going down to St. Elizabeth. And one morning at 3 o'clock, he woke up and his 6 goats were in a vehicle going down the road. Now, it's hard. It's a challenge. And I don't think that we can have this discussion without having a discussion on policy, what government policy is that supports things like, we know RADA is there, but predial larceny is the biggest deterrent to people growing food. And as you say, if I'm going to put money in, I need to get something back.
No, excellent. I think the best way to present the dilemma that we face, quality and price, I agree with you. Joan, somebody told me once that, if I buy a pound of yam for $300, when I peel a pound of yam, it goes down to 3/4 pound. I buy a pound of rice, and my 3 children can get a good meal from it. And he said, Ron, how many people can I feed with the 3/4 pound of yam after I remove the skin? And it was a time when we were trying to promote eat what you grow what we eat. And the truth is that I was stuck. Joan, you're on the floor.
All right, good evening, everyone. So I have a concern. In talking about the GMO seeds and so on, and we spoke about that once you plant it, you can't use it again. So it means that you have to go back and buy. How can we get back, or can we get back to the days when we have real seeds, and I'm putting in quotation marks, real seeds that will allow us to utilize the end product, so to speak, once that crop dies?
So sorry, one of the things that we have been pushing, Kermit, in the Ministry of Agriculture for years is a germ bank with our germplasm. That has eluded us. If you have not captured that 30, 40 years ago and put them away. I'm sorry that you don't have that material today. Kermit, I'll take Kermit, and then I have 2 burning questions from YouTube.
What we do, we have to build our own seed bank. Because I can't be organic, but I'm buying seeds with poison. It can't work. So we have to build our own seed bank where we certain healthy plant, we allow them to go to flag, get the seed, and then we store this, and this is what we use to go back to market. Now we have to deliberately do that in order to be organic.
Yeah, I have some corn, and they may have been about 20 years old. I got from an old lady out in Westmoreland, and it is the original corn. And I plant and I keep them in my refrigerator, which I think is that old corn that you're talking about. It grows back, but the truth is, after a while, it loses its capability. So Marlo is asking, why is it that we are importing so much onions and have them in cold storage, and when we sell them, they are in such shabby condition? Again, I don't know if that's a question we can answer. You know, a lot commerce and the need to create wealth at all costs is something that has been with us for a long time and will always stay with us. And there are some things that are unexplainable, because there are 2 crops that we had a strategy for export substitution on in Jamaica. It's Irish potato and onion. And I remember at one point we pretty much had produced all the Irish potato we wanted. We have lost that. The same thing, I think we were up to 60% of the onions were actually grown here. The truth is, a lot of the imported food stuff, the margins are better than growing it local. How that happens, only God He knows. But it is one of the dilemmas that we faced in the sector. There is another question that as a child I would go to the market and there was some white stuff on the banana, and you know the message says, when I asked my mother what it is, and she said it was carbine that was used to force ripe. And you have heard about this carbine. I still don't know what that is, because I don't know the science behind it. But people do different things to delay ripening and also to speed up ripening. In banana, we usually use a light effect. We have a ripening house, and you can play with the lighting, and it will delay or enhance ripening, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know people keep mangoes for months, and I know you can delay by refrigerating, and there are some other things you can do that is fairly safe. But there are persons who put stuff. But the truth is, when you don't know, there are people who do some little things and rely on it, and they think it works because they don't know. But the danger is how unsafe it is, because they could very well be using something that is very detrimental to your health. And that is why education is so important. I don't know if any of my speakers wants to address any of those 2 issues. No. And I think that's the audience. We have had a long day, and I must say that a lot of food for thought. A lot of food for thought. But I think the takeaway from today, and what I think all the panelists agreed on, is that there needs to be a diversification of the production of food. Everybody needs to become involved. There's no excuse for not being able to produce your own food. Because if you're living in an apartment complex, that little container that you have, you can put some soil in it and you can grow your pepper. And you can have nice organic pepper. And it's a start. You don't have to worry that you're not producing all your food because you may not have what it takes. I'm hearing that one of the good things about the good book, there's no expiration to it. because the lessons about eating wealthy, the lessons about productions are grounded in that good book. And so it is timely and instructive that the church decides to lead on food security and also give a theological perspective to it. We are hearing that food is not just a business for adults, but the children can participate, young people can participate. Don't just make them the repository of knowledge, but make them be a part of the decision making. That's what I hear Master Vernon to be saying. And I am agreeing with him, and I'm adding to what he didn't say, that the youth is the now and the youth is the strategy towards agriculture. We are agreeing that the church has a role, that in the same way we administer to the spiritual welfare, we need to have this conversation about how we sustain that physical body. And that Webster has taken the lead. It is something that needs to go beyond Webster. And so Rev needs to be able to say to his fellow pastors, listen, it may very well be something that the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands may want to be leading on, is the theology behind agriculture. Listen, everybody needs to get involved. There is a threat. 42% of our people are food insecure. They are not having the QQA. And so we have a role as a church to ensure that persons pay attention to the QQA and that persons play their role in ensuring the QQA. Thank you. God bless you. Have a safe trip home. And thanks for having me as well.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am sure everyone will agree with me that this has been a most enlightening evening. To our esteemed panelists, our Webster Memorial family, our guests in the sanctuary, and those joining us online, we extend a big thank you for being here today, sharing in our public advocacy forum focusing on food security. Reverend Seville, Master Daniel Vernon, and Mr. Kermit Tucker, you have all in your own way shared excellent perspectives on food security this evening, and we are all better for it after the rich information shared with us. Thank you. Reverend Seville, you shared some thought-provoking information with us this evening, as well as reminders of the importance of diet on our health. The theological perspective regarding how we are to utilize what God has given us was an excellent reminder that we are stewards of the land and ought to take care of God's gift to us. Master Vernon, what a joy and promise to see a 12-year-old invested in farming from such a young and tender age. You have offered some great suggestions for young people to get involved in food security. We look forward to the younger generation having a say. Mr. Tucker, you have certainly provided valuable information on organic farming and the awareness that you have instilled in us will definitely make us pause when we go shopping. Not only are we healthier, but nature, the planet, will be preserved if we put healthier practices in place when we farm. To our Webster Memorial team, led by our Reverends Asta Carlisle and Delroy Harris, thank you for always facilitating these informative programs for our church family and beyond. Special thanks to our moderator and bonus panelist, Dr. Blake, for ably guiding this evening's program. Our planning committee, led by Joan Jonas, and Yannick, who was quite integral. Thanks for making today's event a reality. To our ever hardworking AV team, our security personnel, and all hands on deck, and all hands that were on deck to ensure today's event was a success, a hearty thank you for your collective efforts. And in closing, I will share this Bible verse with you, taken from 2 Corinthians 9, verse 10. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. Friends, may your territories be enlarged as you sow seeds of hope. God bless you and travel safely home. Thank you.
Friends, we're not finished yet. Let's not run away. Just to share with you that tomorrow night we will be having our talent show and our Nyamins night. And the Nyamins night, I'll tell you, it's the food grown in Jamaica. So it means that we must be here tomorrow night. Friends, I wore this shirt for a purpose. No. I learned tonight, even though I wasn't here, I was listening, but I learned tonight that the big pineapple I always purchase and the big plantain and the big ripe banana, I'm going to cut it out now. The smaller it is, the better it is for me, right? Yeah, so I learned that tonight. That's my takeaway for tonight, yes? That I will now purchase the smaller fruits. So, ladies and gentlemen, those online, those in the sanctuary, come out tomorrow night. We are praying that the Father will hold up the rain so we will have a wonderful, fun, tabulous time tonight on the outside. Yes? So come out and name some Jamaican food. Yeah? Grown in Jamaica. Yes? Yes. Yes. Let us look to God in prayer as we close. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we come before you with hearts full of gratitude for this opportunity to gather and discuss the critical issue of food security. Thank you for the wisdom shared, the ideas exchanged, and the passion ignited within us today. Lord, as we leave this forum, we ask for your continued guidance. Help us turn the knowledge we have gained into action that will bring nourishment to those who hunger and justice to those who lack access of food. Bless the hands that work tirelessly to provide food, and give us all the strength and courage to advocate for systems that ensure no one is left behind. May your love and mercy guide our efforts as we work towards a world where everyone has access to the food they need to strive. Protect and bless our communities, leaders, and all who are involved in this important work. We leave here empowered by your grace, ready to serve and trusted in your provision. Father, bless us as we depart. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the blessed Holy Spirit. Amen.